Tonight for dinner, we are having a super easy honey garlic pork and broccoli. This is something that I think you could put together with just about any vegetable. Anything you would put in a stir fry will go great in here. We just always have so much broccoli in this house, so that's the one that I decided to put in here. I am using a pre-made marinade by Kum Kee, and it's fantastic. It's absolutely worth the, I don't know, $2.50 that it was. But I might recommend that you get two if you're adding a vegetable, because it's kind of only meant for about 14 ounces of protein. But this was absolutely fantastic, and I think you guys are going to love this one. So the very first thing we're going to do is that we're actually just going to marinate the meat. I really want this to marinate for as long as possible. The packet says for 1 hour, but I'm going to aim for at least 30 minutes. Normally I make my own because I have all of the ingredients for this, but I saw this at my local Asian store, and this is Kum Kee. I really like a lot of their other stuff. My hoisin sauce and oyster sauce are both this brand. So I just thought we would give it a shot and see if it's as delicious as the rest of their stuff is. So this is for 400 grams of meat, which is about 14 ounces. And I've got 13 ounces of pork here, so we're just going to use the whole packet for that. And I just have this already cut up into cubes, into small pieces. I'm going to be making kind of a stir fry, I suppose. I'm really happy with the color. It's really dark and glossy. Let me go get a pair of chopsticks. I always try to do this just to squeeze out as much of this as I can. I'm not that great at it, but I always get a little bit more. All right, and then we are just going to give this a mix. This is definitely enough for 13 ounces of meat. And I suspect that this will not only add some flavor, it'll probably start to tenderize the meat a little bit. All right, everything's really nicely coated. I'm just going to kind of squish it down. And then I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap, and we're going to throw it in the fridge for at least 30 minutes, but I'm going to aim for the hour. And then when you're marinating something, if you're in a position to vacuum seal it, vacuum sealed meats marinate faster than non-vacuum sealed meats. I don't know why, I just know that they do. So I like to really get as much of the air out as possible. I put the plastic wrap all the way down to the meat instead of just over the top of the bowl. That is ready to go in the fridge. I'm going to let that sit for at least 30 minutes, but I'm going to try for an hour. And then when it's time to make the rest of the stir fry, I'm just going to go off of the ingredients that are on the back of this to make any extra sauce that I might need. So this, of course, is a honey garlic marinade. So it's got, of course, sugar and honey are the top two ingredients. Soy sauce, tomato paste, water, salt, onions. So I'll go off of those ingredients to make my own little extra sauce if I need any more. And then we'll kind of cook it all together and see how it goes. I got distracted, so my meat has definitely been marinating for a little over an hour. So now we're just going to start prepping our veggies. There are so many veggies that would go really well with this, but we always have a lot of broccoli in our fridge, so that's what we're going to be having with this tonight. And I do want some pretty small pieces, so I'm kind of just chopping off the florets, and then I'm going to let them, they'll cook down in the sauce and they'll shrink a little bit, so they don't need to be tiny. Just about that big is fine. And then if you have one that you want to cut down, it's not coming apart really easy, I really like to just kind of cut it right through the stalk part and just break it all the way up. That gets you not a whole lot of the tiny little green bits. It's a clean break and some nice sized florets. And I'll save these stalks for something else. Sometimes I like to dice them up and put them in my salad base, or I might use them, saute them up with something else. The stalks have a little bit of sweetness to them. I just don't love them in my stir fries. All right, my broccoli is all cut up. I know that looks like a lot of broccoli, but it really is going to shrink down a lot while it's cooking. I'm just going to cover this with some cold water. I'm going to add probably about a tablespoon of salt and kind of just let that sit for a little while. That's going to wash it and kind of get as many impurities out as possible. All right, I gave it one rinse. I'm just going to add in really a tablespoon or a little bit more of salt. And I'm just going to let this sit while the pork is cooking. And then when the pork is done, I will rinse it one more time and then add this into the wok. All right, my wok is heated up. I'm going to add in a pretty generous amount of olive oil. And you can use whatever neutral oil you like. You could even use sesame oil if you wanted that flavor. I'm just trying to keep it neutral since we're using that pre-made marinade. We're just going to add our pork straight in. And I'm just going to kind of spread it out. I want this to start searing as quickly as possible. So my wok is on a pretty high heat. And we're going to let this sit for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and then we're going to toss it around and add in our broccoli. All right, our pork has been cooking for about 4 minutes, and I can see that one side is already starting to caramelize really, really nicely. I'm just giving that one quick mix, and then we are going to add in all of our rinsed broccoli. We're going to give that one more mix. And then I'm just going to cover this with a lid and let it sit. I'm going to lower my heat to medium or medium-low. And we're going to let this sit and kind of steam and cook together for, 5 to 10 minutes until that broccoli is all the way cooked and tender. So all my food is just about cooked, but I can see there's not quite as much sauce as I wish there was in there. So I'm just going to make a little bit more. If I had a second packet of that marinade, I would just simply use a second packet. But because I don't, I'm just going to use the ingredients on the back of it to kind of make my own sauce. So obviously one of the main ingredients in the honey garlic sauce is garlic. So I'm going to add some garlic cloves. If I had garlic paste, that's what I would use. But I only have these kind of half frozen garlic cloves, so I'm going to smash these, and then I'm going to give them a really, really fine mince and kind of turn them into my own garlic paste. And then once they're really nicely minced, the easiest way I have found to turn it into a paste is using a really wide knife. I just kind of like to take it and smush it into the cutting board, and then I'll kind of mix it up with the blade, maybe give it another chop. And then I kind of just keep doing that until it's the consistency that I like. All right, this is really pasty. I'm pretty happy with this. I'm just going to go ahead and put it straight into my bowl. And that's probably about, I don't know, maybe a teaspoon and a half of garlic paste. I'm going to go ahead and just wash my hands and then make the rest of our sauce. All right, to my garlic paste, I'm going to add in a bit of soy sauce, maybe about a tablespoon. I will do just a tiny bit more. Yeah, probably a little over a tablespoon of soy sauce. And then I'm going to add in some honey. I've got a little bit left in this jar. If I can open it. Oh my gosh. I don't know who closed all my jars. Haha. All right, we're going to add in some honey. That's probably about a teaspoon and a half of honey. I'll wash that. And I'm just gonna give this a taste. I want it to be super, super simple, nothing crazy. It's not very sweet. I'm gonna add in probably the rest of this honey. All right, that's probably about 2, maybe 2.5 teaspoons total of honey for our 1 tablespoon of soy sauce and our 1.5 teaspoons of garlic powder. And then I'm just gonna add this into my wok and let everything finish cooking together. Everything is ready. That came together pretty quickly, maybe a little over 30 minutes after the meat was done marinating. And this, of course, is something that you could do with chicken or pork like I've done. I've seen a lot of people say that honey garlic goes really nicely on salmon. I haven't tried it myself yet, but it came together quickly. It smells fantastic. I am super excited to try this. I'm gonna see how hot it is. Cheers. That's good. There's good flavor. I really like that marinade. I know I made a little bit of my own sauce to kind of augment that, but I really do like that marinade. If I had a second packet, I think I would have preferred to have used a second packet, so next time I'll probably just get 2 of them. I also wanted to try it with a little bit of sriracha because I am really into spicy food right now. So we're gonna give that one more try. Cheers. That's the way to go. If you are wanting something spicy, use a honey garlic marinade and add some sriracha or some white pepper if you want something a little less spicy. But that really, really was fantastic. Sweet and spicy is one of my all-time favorite combinations, so this is definitely a win for me.